phone.
Okay. Well, in any case,
But I can see you, I can hear
you
you.
hear us. Okay, you hear us,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see us.
Yeah.
We can start. I wanted to wait so to the effect that we are more than 30 people in the room. And so good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce tonight's Zoominar. It's the second, if I'm not mistaken, in the series of the International. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Dr. Raquel Levy-Toledano, who from France, la région parisienne, Paris, will speak to us about a Moroccan Jewish genealogical journey, tracing roots through DNA and the paper trail. Let me just say how pleased I am to host Raquel, who is a member of the Institute, the International Institute of Jewish Genealogy. And I will say just a few words of introduction. Raquel is a doctor in medicine, specialized in gynecology, and has a PhD in molecular endocrinology. She did many years of career in the pharmaceutical industry, but I think her love is genealogy in different ways. And in fact, she is a very active member of several organizations besides the International Institute of Jewish Genealogy. She's a board member of the Cercle de Généalogie Juive and a board member of the IAJGS, the International Association of Jewish Genealogy Societies, a co-administrator of Avoteinu DNA Project, and the founder and president of a genealogic association, Nos Ancêtres Juifs Marocains et Algériens, Najma or Nahma. Besides that, she's a curator at Geni, a collaborative, which, as we know, is a collaborative genealogic platform. And she's a founder and administrator of the Facebook group Généalogie des Juifs du Maroc, a group which has more than 12,500 members. I will let Raquel explain how she came to become passionate about genealogy. But I want to say that she's working on a number of projects, especially thinking that the interest on the Moroccan Jewish diaspora is highly interesting because this huge community is now spread out all over the world, and its collective memory relies especially on the memory of the elders. So apart from rabbinic literature, there is relatively little documentation on Moroccan Jews. There are, in fact, a few works, even recent, but we have to rely on civil registry, which was implemented after the French protectorate in 1956. And of course, as time goes by, this memory as well as family links at large are being lost. So the important goal is to perpetuate this memory and to restore family links through genealogy. Now, Raquel is involved in at least two major projects. One is a book on the genealogy of the Toledano family, which was started by the late Yaakov Tal Toledano, Toli, Zichrono Livracha, who devoted his life researching all of the descendants of Rabbi Daniel Toledano, the ancestor of almost all, if not all, the Toledano of Morocco, who arrived in Morocco in 1610. And he published a book in Hebrew, and Raquel is completing his work, and she hopes to publish a volume in English so that it is available to a broader readership. And then finally, I will mention a very important analysis of Montefiore censuses of the 19th century with a focus on the Maghrebian Jews, I've seen some excerpts of this work, which looks highly promising. Many people have worked on Montefiores, but I think Raquel and her associates are doing a wonderful job. So let's go with this lecture. And Raquel, the platform is yours, and we are all listening with great interest. Thank you.
Just one moment, Raquel. I would like to say to everyone, we will have all of the microphones muted. And if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. And we'll save the last few minutes of the time with Raquel to answer your questions. Raquel, it's on.
You are mute.
Mute.
Apparently the sound was not on. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So I'm very pleased to share with you my Moroccan Jewish genealogical journey and to show you how I traced my ancestors through DNA and paper trail. So the first, this banal and simple question, did you know that our Levy great-grandfather was born in Manchester, started this whole enterprise. I didn't know that my great-grandfather was born in Manchester. What I knew about my Levy family was mostly Mesoda Ohayon Levy, my great-grandmother. Her brother Nessim Ohayon was a big figure in our family, and as up to today, I'm in contact with his descendant, in close contact with his descendant. But about the Levy family, I didn't have any information. The only thing I knew is that they were from Mogador. So let me tell you a few words about Mogador. Mogador, named today Essaouira, is on the Moroccan Atlantic coast. It was a Portuguese fortress until 1760, when the King Mohammed ibn Abdallah decided to develop international trade by building a seaport at the location of Mogador. He brought in Mogador 10 families, Jewish families, and 10 Muslim families that became known as the Tajer Sultanate. From there, there was an intense trading taking place there in Mogador with England in Manchester, especially with Manchester. So I was not very, although I was surprised, it was plausible that part of my family has reside in Manchester or came from Manchester. And this trading was also taking place with other European countries. A very important event occurred in 1844. It was a bombardment by the French Navy of Mogador in retaliation of Moroccan to Algerian population that were colonized by the French, and that led to the destruction of the Jewish quarters called the Mela and a massive exodus of the Jews from Mogador. So this is just to show you how Mogador looked. This is probably a picture taken at the end of the 19th century or beginning of the 20th century. This is called the Mela. These are the Jewish quarters. This is a street of the Jewish quarters of Mogador. But in contrast, I wanted also to show you some families of Mogador and the kind of Victorian way of life that they had. This is the Korkos family, and this is the Afriat family, both relative of Sidney Korkos, who allowed me to share these pictures. Just to show you, and there were these families were part of the Tajer Sultanate. So just to show you how some Mogadorian look like. And again, it was not that surprising that my family was linked to Manchester. So who was my great-grandfather born in Manchester? I was looking for someone named Levy. Since my father, the eldest son of Nassim, and his cousin, the eldest son of Abraham, were named Meyer, I suppose that my great-grandfather was also named Meyer, and because Abraham was the eldest of the sibling, I also suppose that this Meyer Levy was a son of Abraham Levy, and that he was born in Manchester between 1845 and 1865, taking into account the date of birth of Abraham and Nassim. So I started to dig into the UK archives, and there I found a wealth of documentation in the UK censuses, historical directories, online archives of several journals, all kind of registry, marriage, death, wills, registry, even in South African journals, online family trees, etc., to trace and to find my great-grandfather and to trace his family. My first encounter with Meyer Levy was on this census 1861, where I found that there was a Meyer Levy in Manchester, living in Manchester, born in Manchester, aged of 8 at 1861, so he was born around 1853. His father was Abraham Levy, and his mother was Rachel, and they were living in Manchester. From there, I started to trace the family, and I could see the social rise of Abraham Levy family. So Abraham Levy was born in Poland. He arrived in Manchester between 1850 and 1853 because Meyer was born in Manchester, but his next brother, Jacob, was born in 1850 in Poland. So that's probably in the interval that his family came to Manchester. Abraham was a salesman in 1861, but starting 1871, he was a fence merchant and probably a successful one. He had 2 business addresses. He was a treasurer of the Manchester Hebrew Congregation, member of several committees. He made numerous donations, as did his son, to funds, a cemetery fund, educational fund, charity fund, etc., and to Shitham Great Synagogue, which was the main synagogue in Manchester at that time. There, all the family had were members into different social clubs, and his will, as his wife's wills, showed that he had been quite successful, and that at the end of their lives, they had several possessions. This is a page of the directory of 1879 directory, sorry, and we see here the 2 addresses of Abraham Levy as a fence merchant. His 2 sons, Joseph and Meyer, my potential great-grandfather, were working with him as a fence dealer. What I also found is that he did some international trade with Canada, with South Africa, and that would have given to Meyer several opportunities to travel to Morocco to meet my great-grandmother and to marry her and to have children with her. So this fit with my story. What I also found, and that quite pleased me, is that his brother, Benjamin Levy, was the first mayor of Aliwal North in South Africa. the second mayor was Joseph Levy, his brother, who was also mayor partners, business partners. And actually, even today, there is a very large neighborhood in in Aliwal North called the Levy neighborhood in memory of the Levy brothers, who were the first mayors of Aliwal North. So I was starting to find my ancestor, not knowing anything about him. And while I thought that my Moroccan Jewish ancestors were living in the deep Mela, I'm here with a successful, quite notable family, and that really pleased me, I should say. So let's go back to Meyer. Meyer Levy married Frances Mansfield, in London in 1886. I found the family in the 1891 census, but what struck me is that there Meyer is listed as a cotton merchant, and it says foreign home. I don't know why it says so, whether it is this home was a foreign home to him, or whether he had a foreign home elsewhere, which also fit with my story. But that was the first hint that perhaps he had another house and another family. This is a notice of the London Gazette where it shows that Meyer was indeed the business partner of his brother in Aliwal North, that they had a company there, and that supported also the fact that Meyer had traveled and had the opportunity to travel outside UK and especially in Africa. In the 1901 census, I found Frances, Meyer's wife, with her children listed in Broughton, which is a neighborhood in Manchester, but not at the same address as the previous one. And what also I found is that there she claimed that she's living on her own means. So again, another hint that maybe she was separated from Meyer, or the couple was not doing that well. At the same time, I found Meyer listed in Leigh, which is about 30 to 40 kilometers from Manchester, in a border in a surgeon house. So I didn't know whether he was sick and being treated by this surgeon in Leigh, whether he was traveling, because this house in Leigh was very close to the railway station. I checked, or if this was his main house. So in any case, Meyer died in Leigh a few days, less than a month after this census took place, and he died on April 10th, 1901. What was surprising is that his death notice was published by his mother alone. So I don't know how it is in UK, but in France and in Morocco, and I guess elsewhere, in a death notice, you mention, or at least it is mentioned, the whole family, the parents, but also the wife, the children, the siblings, etc. Here we have only Mrs. Abraham Levy, which is Rachel, Meyer's mother, and same for the notice that she published in memory of her son a year after his death. So that was also surprising and perhaps indicating that Frances was not totally part of the family. In any case, 2 weeks after Meyer's death, Frances published a notice in the London Gazette asking for any creditors or other persons having any claims against the estate of Mayor Levy to make themselves known before the 24th of June, 1901, as if she knew that he had another family, and she gave them a very short notice, like as if she wanted to spoil this family, meaning my grandfather, his mother, and his sibling, from the inheritance of their father. So all of this was an array of argument and indication that indeed there was a second family elsewhere. I looked into, actually this was in Jewish Gen, where I found a family tree where Meyer was mentioned as his sister Elena Levy, and this family tree was built by Elena great-granddaughters that I will call daughters Myers. I had the opportunity to talk to her. She was very empathic with me. She listened to me very carefully. She told me that she was not aware that Meyer had another family elsewhere, but if he had, he would have never told his parents, who were an Orthodox Jewish family, that he had a second wife. They would have never accepted that, and they would have probably taken him off the wheel. So that would have been a reason why he didn't talk about it. Talking to her, she told me that her father, Anthony Myers, did a DNA test. So when she told me so, I rushed into the internet, I bought myself a DNA test, and I tested myself. At that point, I was convinced that this Meyer Levy was my great-grandfather. It turned out that I didn't have any DNA match with Anthony Myers. But I didn't give up. This was plausible. He was my second cousin once removed, so it was possible that we didn't have a DNA match. But with my uncle, Joseph, there was no, he had to have a DNA match. So I also tested my uncle Joseph, sorry. And when I did so, unfortunately, they didn't match. So I just found a potential great-grandfather. I was very happy with his family, with himself, with the life that I could imagine he had had, and I lost him. So I found him through paper trail, and I lost him through genetic genealogy. Let me tell you a few words about DNA and genetic genealogy. When you do a DNA test, what you test is the autosomal DNA, and you look at the DNA segment that you inherited from all these ancestors. But most of the time, you cannot identify this ancestor unless you have close DNA match, and most of the time you cannot identify ancestors that are above 5 or 6 generations. However, you can trace one line if you are a man, testing your Y-DNA, or testing, if you are a woman, your brother or your father Y-DNA. You can trace your patrilineal line, which means the father of your father. So this ancestor only, by testing your Y-DNA, because the Y chromosome is very similar. The Y chromosome of contemporary men is very similar to that of their ancestor that lived 500, 800, 1,000 years ago. So that is an interesting test to take, and that can be useful for genealogy as well. Likewise, if you test your mitochondrial DNA that is transmitted from a woman to her offspring. You can also trace your matrilineal line, which is a single line, which is the line of the mother of your mother of your mother, etc. But you cannot trace all these ancestors that are in the middle. One interesting information that you get from DNA tests are genetic cousins. So genetic cousins are people who share DNA segment with you and that probably have a common ancestor with you. But it doesn't tell you who is this ancestor, when he lived, etc. The longest the segment of DNA you share with that person is the closest in the family relationship you have with this person. It is also interesting to look for other matches with other members, for matches with other members of your family, especially try to take one member from your paternal line, one member for your maternal line, and that will tell you which side of the family, sorry, from which side of the family this person is. But an interesting point is to look for triangulation. Triangulation are DNA segments that are inherited by more than 3 individuals, 3 genetic cousins, and what that triangulation show is that you have a common ancestor, that the 3 of these genetic cousins have a common ancestor. And to find out about this common ancestor, you have to look, of course, at your DNA, but also at the family tree, at the names, at the location where they lived, etc. So that being said, who was my great-grandfather, Meyer Levy? What do I know about him? Nothing. Just I knew my own family. And since I tested my Uncle Joseph, I also decided to test my late Aunt Yvonne that sadly passed away 2 years ago. And by doing so, I found that the 3 of us had a triangulated segment which indicated that we shared a common ancestor, which was very surprising to me because I didn't know that my parents were related. I knew that they met randomly. They didn't live in the same city. And their marriage was not arranged like it could have been sometime in Morocco, but they married because they were in love, and that was really surprising to me. So I asked my Uncle Joseph, he didn't know anything about it, and asked my Aunt Yvonne. And then when I asked the question, she said, oh, now that you asked me the question, yes, I remember that we were barely and distantly related, your family, your Levy family and our family. And she told me that her grandmother was Alia Levy, and that Alia's father was Mimoun Levy, and that was probably through this Mimoun Levy that my parents were related. Considering the DNA match that we had, the 3 of us, and the triangulation, I suspected that Mimoun Levy was the brother of Meyer Levy. So that was a step ahead. I identified Meyer Levy as probably as my ancestor and his potential brother, Mimoun Levy, but I had no more indication than that. And by digging again and again, I found a register, circumcision register of Moel Judah ben Daran. In this register, I found my grandfather Nessim, his brother Abraham, and they were both the son of Meyer Levy. So I was right about my great-grandfather's first name. It was indeed Meyer. But what was surprising to me is that I found this name added to Levy, and the name Belfsachi, I've never heard about it. So I asked everyone in my family, my Levy family, if they were aware of this Belfsachi name. No one knew about it. And I also looked for the, first of all, Belfsachi doesn't sound very, I would say, Manchesterian. So this confirmed that the origin of the family was probably not Ashkenazi and not Manchester. And secondly, I tried to understand what was the meaning of Belfsachi. Actually, it was not too bad. It meant, from what I understood, someone who dresses well, who behaves well. So it was not too bad. I could live with the Belfsachi name. But then by looking in the Moel Ben Dahan register, I found a whole bunch of Levi Belfsachi. And I found, of course, Abraham and Nessim, my grandfather and his brother. I found Meir, but also I found Mimoun. And that was considering the dates of the children, the date of birth of the children, and all the other Levi. I considered that this was a single family and that the fathers, most of the fathers, were brothers. So the brother that Meir was, David was the brother of Meir, and Mimoun, Simon. And Mesod here was born quite late, so he's probably not the grandson. He's probably one of the grandson and not the brother. I mean, not the brother of the other brothers. From there, I built the family tree, and indeed, so my great-grandfather was Meir Levi Belsachi, and all his grandchildren, the firstborn grandchildren, were also named Meir. I suspected also, and that was confirmed later on, that his father was Mesod Levi Belsachi. And so I was quite pleased. I went from knowing nothing about the family, and I could find the name of my great-grandfather and of his father. So that was not too bad. Then I had a DNA match with Alain. So, and what it showed, this DNA match, is that he's strongly matched with my Uncle Joseph, and he's strongly matched with my Aunt Yvonne. Moreover, he had a triangulated segment with both of them, but not with me. When I looked at his family tree that was available on my heritage, I found that his grandfather was Mesod Levi, and his great-grandfather was David Levy. So this highly suggested that we had a relationship through the Levy, but for me, it did not constitute a proof. I talked to Alain about my search, and I told him about the name Levi Belfsachi. He didn't know anything about that. But he asked around, and until one of his first cousins told him that Levi Belfsachi was our name, our family name in Mogador at that time, and that's how we were called, Levi Belfsachi, which is not very surprising because in Mogador, there were several Levi, and I know at least the Levi Yuli, the Levi Korkos, the Levi Ben Hamou, the Levi Ben Soussan, the Levi Demnati. So actually, most of the Levi family had another name to distinguish them from the other Levi family. And ours was Levi Belfsachi. So from there, I started to gather all the information I had and to build the family tree of the descendant of Mesod Levi Belfsachi. The first one that I added to this tree was Baruch Levy. Indeed, I forgot about him because his daughter, I knew about him because his daughter Mazal had married Abraham, and she was the mother of this Meyer Levy. He probably did not have a son, or if he did, they were circumcised by another Mohel than Mohel Ben Dahan. So that's why I didn't find him in the register. But I could add Baruch, and Baruch is it's not that common in Morocco, and you'll see why later on it is important that I mention that. Then from the descendant of Baruch Levy and of Mazal, I heard that my grandfather had a sister, half-sister, named Esther Levy. She married Monsieur El Maleh, and with him they had her firstborn, I think, or one of her sons was also Meyer El Maleh, named after her father, Meyer Levy. So I completed the tree with that. Then I added the Alain's family. So he was his grandfather was Mesod, and he descended from this branch, from David Levy. I could add also his great aunt who married Isaac, one of my, the youngest brother of my grandfather. I didn't know about that, but he knew. Alain knew about Frecha being Isaac's wife. Then I could add also the descendant of Yaakov Levy that I found through DNA match, and Yaakov was the twin sister of Alia, which was my great-grandmother from my mother's side. So I could build all this tree, and I didn't put everyone in this tree, of course, but today in Jenny, we are probably about 400 descendants of Mesod Levy Belfsachi. I know most of them. They are all I would say, my cousin with whom I communicate frequently. Some of them knew about us before I met them, but in our family, it appeared that we were totally separated from the other part of the family. So, as I said, I was happy. I found the name of my great-grandfather, the name of his father, Mesod, and I was very lucky because by reading this book, The Merchant of Essaouira, written by Daniel Schroeder, who is a historian quite knowledgeable on Moroccan Jewish history, I found the name of my great-great-grandfather, Mesod, Mas'ud in Arabic, and Mas'ud, he was cited there as Mas'ud ben David Halevi, so Ben David Levy, and he had an agreement that was quite particular to be notified in this book, an agreement with David ben Jacob Korkos. So that gave me the name of my third great-grandfather, David Levy. Then about a year and a half ago, I was contacted by someone from Portugal, whose family was originally from Capo Verde. And he asked me if I was aware about this family, as I was, so he contacted me on Jenny, as I was a Jenny curator taking care of the Moroccan Jewish family tree. He thought that I could have some information about this family. I looked all over the books that I had, and there are not, unfortunately, so many. I tried to find any information about that family, and unfortunately, I could not give him any information about this family. Until one day, a woman called Mrs. Montero Levy did a DNA test, and boom, she had a DNA matched with me. She matched with me as a fourth cousin, but most importantly, she matched strongly, somehow strongly with my uncle Joseph. And most importantly, she triangulated, not with me, but most of my cousin. So she triangulated with Joseph, my uncle, with Elachar, the grandson of Esther Levy, with Mor Youssef, my first cousin, and with Semana, my third cousin, all descending from Mesod Levy. So I could say that Mrs. Montero Levy shared an ancestor with us, the descendant of Mesod Levy. From there, I could build the tree. I'm not going into detail, but I confirmed that with the software where you put the DNA information of all people that match with the person, and that the software will tell you where this person fit in your tree. And indeed, actually, this was her tree already. And indeed, she was shown as the granddaughter of Alvaro, who himself was the great-great-son, or how do we say, great-grandson of Baruch Levy. Remember that Baruch is not a very common name, and that allows me, and it fit totally with the DNA data that I had for several person in my family, few other person in this Levy family from Capo Verde, and this allowed me to find my fourth great grandfather, Baruch Levy, whose son Fortunato was the father of Bento Levy, who was born in Portugal, I guess in Faro, in 1851. He went to Capo Verde. He married their Capo Verde woman, and they had 5 sons. And Mrs. Montero Levy was the great-granddaughter of Bento Levy. But what was interesting is that the last great grandson of Bento Levy is still alive. His name is Abrao Montero Levy. He lives in Capo Verde. And I had the opportunity, once I knew that, I decided to go to Capo Verde, and I had the opportunity to meet him. This was very moving because although Abrao is a Christian, he was totally aware of his Jewish heritage, of his genealogy. He had all kind of documents that he shared with me, pictures, family tree, etc. And what was very interesting is that when I was there, I had a friend that was from Capo Verde, and they had a death in their family. And by curiosity, I asked her, what do you do what is the tradition when someone dies here in Capo Verde? And though she told me that in Santiago, the main island, after the death of a close member of the family, people go home, stay home for 8 days, and then people, other family members come, visit them, and bring them food. And this reminded me, of course, of the Shiva. And what I thought is that most of the Jewish, I'll tell you a little bit more about Jewish men, Jewish Moroccan immigrants in Cabo Verde, but most of them were men, and they probably asked their descendants to follow the tradition of the Shiva. What I have to say also is that in my Levy family was not the only one to go to Cabo Verde. There were a few other Moroccan Jewish family, and there are hundreds of people bearing Moroccan Jewish names, such as, of course, Levy, but not only Levy, I would say Belfsachi, but also Levy Ben Toubo from Tanger, Ben Ross, Ben Oliel, Cohen, Ohayon, Wahnon, and actually the first prime minister of the young Cabo Verde democracy was a descendant of the Wahnon family. His name was Carlos Veiga Wahnon. And I should say that most of these descendants of Moroccan Jews are today, constitute today the kind of elite of the Cabo Verde society. So I also tested my Uncle Joseph and the Levy branch from Cabo Verde, Y chromosome. And what I could see that it is a Jewish line that matched other Levite branch, which is an Ashkenazi branch, and that it is probably an ancient Levi line of Sephardic origin. And this was confirmed by the by the tree of the Y chromosome. The most earlier ancestor of all these lines, all the descendants those are contemporary Jews. They are all Jewish. And the earliest ancestor was probably born 400 years before Common Era. After that, the second daughter line is my line. The ancestor lived probably 200 years after Common Era, so about 1750 years ago, or almost 1800 years ago. And since from that line, all the descendants here are named Levy. So this name has been carried by all these descendants since at least for the last 1800 years. So now, why my great-grandfather was born in Manchester, I just want to show you briefly my family tree with my ancestors. And you can see that Meir Levy was born in Manchester. My great-grandmother, Deborah Mor-José, was born in Portugal. And my great-grandfather from my mother's side, Aaron Zafrani, was born probably in the Azores. And their parents lived also outside Morocco. So why is that so? I told you about the 1844 bombardment by the French Navy. At that time, after the bombardment, all the peasants around Mogador came and did a pogrom of the Jews in Mogador. They killed the men, they robbed everything that they could rob, they raped the woman. So that was probably the reason why my family members left Morocco in 1844 and went, one in UK, the other in Portugal, in the Azores, etc. So in conclusion, as I have highlighted here, there is a major lack of documentation in family and in Moroccan Jewish, for Moroccan Jewish genealogy. And I also highlighted the importance of family memory and family history. Likewise, the power of genealogy to refute hypothetical family story and to confirm hypothesis is extremely important. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for accompanying me into this journey.
Thank you, Raquel. This is really a fascinating adventure, and we have learned many interesting things. Besides the very interesting personal story, really amazing, and your Sherlock Holmes ability to find the culprit. But there also what you presented in one of the later slides, that is the partition between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, which at least according to the data that you have, which is of course not all of the data, is apparently around the 6th century, more or less, of the Common Era. That was the partition that I simply read it on screen, and that's very interesting. There still is some debate among the experts when the partition became stable, and there are different theories. But clearly, it's clear that we are somewhere in the midst of the first millennium. So it's very interesting also that I learned that there were migrations. That's the point. Yeah, exactly. At some point when the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim
here I would say more about, for this particular family and this particular line, it's probably around 1814. 1314.
Yeah,
so
but the previous step, the preceding person, is the one who has descendants on both sides of the socio-cultural divide.
You're
so
right.
That's the crucial. And the other thing that was amazing, the migrations. I saw the Azores and I saw Brazil. That is migrations which are really unconventional. We don't think of that as returning, going west and then returning to the east, which in this case is Morocco. And so that's truly fascinating. So that's really an example, a wonderful example of what can be done with these tools. And now, I suppose there may be questions. So let me see. First of all, there are congratulations. Bravo, wonderful presentation. And thank you and enjoy. There is a question about the name of the computer program that connects the DNA.
Yes.
Do you want to say a word?
Yes, of course. It is called DNA Painter. It is on the internet, so I will write it on the chat.
Okay.
And the program that I used was called WATO, WATO, for what the odd. So that's a program where you put your DNA and you put all the information of DNA matches, and you add some hypotheses, so several hypotheses, and you look for the most probable hypothesis, and that's what this program gives you.
Okay, very good. We will be glad to see that. Now, there is a question by Carrie of Caesar. Why did your ancestors come to Morocco?
I believe that my family came from Spain, at least this Levy line. I didn't go into details, but the other Y chromosome match with my uncle and this Levy line, the closest one was a man living, I can show you, I have the slide somewhere. No, I don't have the slide here in this presentation. He was living in Peru. He was from Peru. And his family was from there. He didn't know that he had a Jewish ancestor. And his branch parted my Levy branch 600 years ago. So probably around the Inquisition. the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. And what I believe is that my family came, my Levy family came from Spain after the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. But I don't have any proof apart from some hint from the DNA.
Okay, although you know there was a previous expulsion 100 years before.
Of course,
it might
in
also
1393,
1393.
More from Seville than from the rest of the Andalusia. It could be also in 1393. I cannot tell, but I believe that they lived in Spain before
Spain.
coming to Morocco.
That's very interesting. Now, then there is the story I see here on the chat. I'm reading Hertog.
I had also a few questions that were
Yeah.
asked by. So I need to. I will stop sharing.
Yes.
Because I need to go back.
Yeah.
To okay. So someone asked me if I had any data on her family, and she gave me the name of a village, probably in Morocco, in southern Morocco, that I didn't find. The village was named Elet Gerard. This I don't know anything about this village. I didn't find it. The only thing I could tell is it is close that Ilig, and Ilig is a well-known village where there were a lot of Jews before the exodus of Moroccan Jews to Israel in the 50s, 60s. And I can share with her, or I will put that in the chat, an article about the epitaph that are in these villages about. So this is what.
Okay.
Okay. Other question I had, and I have to go back to my Excel file, sorry. I had a question, how Moroccan Jews preserved their tradition outside Morocco, and where are most of Moroccan Jews today, apart from Israel? First of all, the easiest question is, where are they? Mostly in France and in Canada, so they are mostly French-speaking. Or in Canada, they are also English-speaking, but there are few. I would say that there are about the same number in France and in Canada. What I want to highlight is that Moroccan Jews is the community is probably the most important Jewish community after in Israel and in the diaspora, after the Ashkenazi community. I believe that today there are about 1 million, 1.5 million Moroccan Jews in the world. How did they preserve?
At least partially, that is,
yeah.
at least partial Moroccan ancestry. Yes, you are correct.
Exactly, of some Moroccan descent.
Some Moroccan ancestry, that's correct.
Yeah. Now, how did they preserve their tradition in the family? My daughter, we left Morocco 50 years ago, more than that, 60 years ago, and my daughter and she still cook Moroccan style. Okay, so at least this kind of tradition is preserved. There was a very rich culture in Morocco, music, a lot of tradition. For example, the Mimouna has been preserved in most of the communities. The liturgy has been also preserved. We all know, I mean, perhaps you know about the PU team, the Moroccan liturgy songs. I don't know, but I think it's mostly through families, and perhaps in Israel, it is also through some schools, etc. She asked me also what kind of books or of text are best to teach about Moroccan Jew. I will cite at least Chaim Zafrani, who was the historian of Moroccan Jewish history. I also found a very interesting document. It's in French, but I will post the link. It is from the Museum of Moroccan Judaism in Brussels, run by Paul Dahan. And he wrote this text, which is quite complete. So that's it. And then the last question was about the movement between Morocco and Algeria and where to find information about Algeria, genealogical information. So first of all, you understood that we don't have in Morocco a lot of archives, or if there are some archives, they are in gathered in Casablanca, but they haven't been digitalized, and it's almost impossible to go and to look at these archives unless you have a name and you have a very specific question. You can ask there the Tribunal Rabbinique. How would you say you would call that? The
Rabbinical court, yes.
The rabbinical court, because in Morocco, there is still a rabbinical court that rules for Moroccan Jews almost, while there are only like 2,000 or 3,000 Moroccan Jews. And for Algeria, I will post the link. You can find a lot of information because Algeria was a French territory. So we have almost all the information that you can find in France for people from Algeria, starting 1860.
Yeah.
So this is a link.
There are still a few questions. By the way, Lynn will tell us how long will the session last.
Yes, sorry, I tried not to be too long.
No, Lynn, what's the answer?
So we can go about 5 minutes more.
Okay. So very quickly, I see on screen a couple of questions. I read you the questions. Well, one looks quite obvious. You think that Toledano comes from Toledo in Spain.
Yes,
I
they
would
do.
bet. I would bet.
Apparently they do, but they didn't come to Morocco directly.
Okay.
They went first to Saloniki, and they came to Morocco from Saloniki.
From Saloniki. Interesting again, migrations east-west and not and then west-east, etc. Then contacts with Melilla. By the way, there is a book by Aviad Moreno on Spanish Morocco, but of course politically these are two different areas. So I'm not sure how much contact was there between French Morocco and Spanish Morocco, if you.
I'm not sure during before the 19th century. For sure, beginning the 20th century, the contacts were constant, and Jews from the Spanish Morocco came to the rest of the rest of the country, and there were exchanges constantly. Before then, I'm not sure. I suppose there was, because There are some people, some of my husband ancestor that is from the Spanish area that were not from that area. So I believe that there were some contact, some close contact, yes.
Okay. And then perhaps the last question by Yael Dadoun was there segregation in the Melach only, or were Jews living also out of the Melach intermingled with others?
Okay. In most cities and even villages, there were Melach, apart from Tanger. In Tanger, there was no Melach. And there were not, until I would say the 1940, 1950, they lived in the Melach. In Mogador, there was the Tajer Sultan lived outside the Melach. And even my family, they went out of the Melach in Mogador. I know my grandfather, I know the house of my grandparents, and they went outside the Melach in the 30s, I guess. And before then, they were all living in the Melach, and they had to live in the Melach. They could not live elsewhere, supposedly because they were protected in the Melach. The Melach was sometimes had like walls around it. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yes, it looks you did. So I think we shall perhaps take it as accomplished, and I think the time limits impose us to complete the session. I think it was a fascinating session, a very great paper, and very stimulating to further
Thank
questions and further research. We hope to have more of this. And of course, we look forward with great expectation to your Montefiore analysis, which from
Thank you.
what I understand will be an amazing topic for another lecture of yours
Yes,
in this
with
series.
pleasure.
So thank you very much on behalf of
Thank you all for attending. And thank you, Sergio, for
So thank you,
conducting this.